Hi everyone, my name is Bill, my artist name is Fat Billy. This video is about connecting PiSCSI to an Akai S5000 sampler. I hope you enjoy it and find it helpful. So this is my sampler, it's an Akai S5000. I'm pretty sure that the steps I'm about to go through will work absolutely fine with an S6000. The unit itself I've had from new. I bought it 2001 I think, paid a lot of money for it. It's being used, not as much as I intended to. In terms of what it's got 256 megs of RAM, so maxed out. I've replaced a floppy drive with a Gotek, which works okay, but it's not great for sort of bulk data. I've also put the USB card into it, hence the USB symbols lit up. Back in the day, the early 2000s, when I was using Cakewalk and loads of hardware, simps and stuff, the ability to plug the USB into my Windows XP system and transfer data over the cable was perfect. It worked absolutely brilliant. I didn't have any need for backing storage, SCSI hard disk or anything like that. Unfortunately, this sampler with the USB card won't work in later versions of Windows. I'm using Windows 11 now. However, there is a use for it. I'm using S56 which was created by somebody in the community, and this enables me to control the sampler using my PC with Windows 11. So let me just click a button here and you'll see that it's changing on the sampler as I do that, and it works absolutely brilliant. So there is still a use for the USB card and the USB connection, but I can't transfer massive samples between the computer and the sampler using the old card and cable, hence the need for some backing storage which will enable me to do that. Now the obvious thing to do is to procure a SCSI hard drive, plug it in, which will be great, and I'm sure it'll work absolutely fine. The only problem is SCSI hard drives are old. It's an old technology. It's not, it's stepping back in time really as a solution. PiSCSI, done some research, absolutely brilliant as a solution. What it means is I can plug some hardware into the back of the sampler with loads of storage space on it. I can also connect to it wirelessly. There's a web interface to enable me to mount and unmount images, and using the wireless connection I'll also be able to transfer sounds between the sampler and my PC, just like I used to be able to. So I'm really looking forward to getting it up and running. So let me show you the components that I've purchased to do this. So these are the things that I've bought. All of this information I obtained from GitHub. There's a PiSCSI forum or group on there, and as a resource it's brilliant. There's loads of information on there. These are the things that I've bought as a result of looking on there and seeing the recommendations. So starting off with the PiSCSI or the RaSCSI itself, I bought this unit from Amiga Kit here in the UK, and I paid them to put some extra bits on. First of all is the Molex connector, which I'm not going to need that, but who knows for the future, I may take it out of the sampler, put it in something else. So having that feature, it just cost a couple of quid for them to put it on. I thought, why not? I also paid for them to put the DB25 SCSI connector on, and as you can see they've done a lovely job with soldering it on, and it's nice and firm on there. So I'll be plugging the SCSI cable into this connector here, And then again, just for a couple of quid, I've paid to have the OLED display, which is this component just here. And that should provide some information about what the device is doing. So obviously a key part, it took a few weeks from ordering to receive it, but well worth the wait. It's lovely. The other thing as well you're going to need is a Raspberry Pi. This is a Pi Zero. Just trying to grip it nicely. This is how it comes. As you can see, it's got the SD card in there already, and I bought a kit from Pi Hut, sorry, and they sent me. Just looking at the box there actually. So a box full of bits. The Raspberry Pi keyboard and mouse that you can see underneath. I've had that for years. I bought that with another Pi that I've got. But with the kit, they sent me the Zero Essentials kit, and there's loads of pin headers and adapters, and this massive cables, which is a power supply HDMI cable, came with it as well. I've actually had the Pi up and running, so I know that it works all absolutely fine. There's also some feet which go on the case for the Pi Zero, which I'm not going to be able to use. Obviously the Pi is going to be plugged into the RaSCSI hardware, so it's not going to fit in that case. So going back to the Pi Zero itself, it does need to have these headers soldered onto it. And in terms of orientation, the pictures that are on the GitHub site, they are clear and there is some good information on there, but the SCSI unit they've got on their pictures doesn't match what I've got. So what I've learned from the site is on the connector on the back there is an indicator there for J1, which is pin 1 on the bottom right corner. If you can just see that there, the J1, that needs to be connected to pin 1 on the Pi, which is easily identified by a square solder connection, which you can see bottom left. I can just point out just here. So that's pin 1. So this board needs to be mounted effectively upside down on the Pi. So I'll be soldering the headers onto this side of the board here. So that's my next job. The other thing I've had to buy as well is a cable. So this cable I got off of eBay. I've not tested it yet, obviously. On one side it's got a DB25 connection, and that's going to plug into the RaSCSI unit there. On the other end is a HD50 connector, which is what is on the back of the S5000. Now this caused me a lot of confusion. I'm not massively familiar with SCSI terminology. So the connector on the back of the Akai on the GitHub site, they reference it as a HD50. What I've learned is it has many names. One of them is micro DB50 or MD50. It is known as a high density or HD50, but the site I actually got this off referred to it as a half pitch or a HP50. So just be wary. They're all the same thing, just different terms for the same thing. And there's the label on the bag. They refer to it as a HP50, as you can see. So that's all of the components I believe I'm going to need to get this to work. As I say, the next job will be setting up my solder station and soldering the pins on. So I'll come back to you. I've completed the soldering of the GPIO headers onto the Pi Zero, as you can see. It took me about 20 minutes using my soldering station and other bits and pieces. It wasn't difficult, but it was certainly fiddly, and I had to use the magnifying glass because everything's so small. But yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert solderer. I'm actually very novice, but managed to get it done, which is the main thing. So the next step is to connect this to the RaSCSI board. So I'll do that now. So I've now got the two boards connected together. I've got the Pi0 mounted on top of the RaSCSI. The pin ones are connected together. Originally when I received the RaSCSI, I wondered why the connecting block was on the underside when all of the components are on this side. It actually makes a whole load of sense. If the block had been on this side, then of course the Raspberry Pi would be covering the OLED display that's on there. So it does actually make sense what the guys at the Omega Kit did by putting it on that side. But anyway, that's the whole unit connected together. So the next step is to plug everything in to get the Pi working, and we'll see if this works. Here we have everything plugged in. As you can see, power's going into the Pi, and RaSCSI is all lit up. The light on my phone is stopping you from seeing the lights, or I'm not sure if you can see them, but they're certainly lighting up the desk in a shade of green. So the Raspberry Pi is powering the RaSCSI. 3 cables plugged in. The one at the back is a video cable, HDMI. The cable came with the kit from Pi Hut. The second black cable, this one here, this is an adapter that came in the kit. I've got that plugged into my Pi keyboard, and my mouse here daisy chains off of the keyboard, so this is absolutely made for the job. So at the moment on the screen, not sure if you can see that, this is the Raspberry Pi operating system. At the moment the installation of the software is underway, and all of these instructions, let me just spin around. Oh. All of these instructions have come off of the GitHub site, very comprehensive. I'm having to have them on my PC and read them off of there and make sure I meticulously type them in accurately, because you can't run you certainly can't run the installed web browser on a Pi Zero. It's just not powerful enough. But no problem. So that's where we're at the moment. Software's installing. I'm just sitting there patiently waiting. But yeah, so far so good, and I've not received any errors or had any issues. Certainly nothing started smoking or gone bang yet. So we'll see how it goes. I'll come back to you again. Okay, so the software appears to have installed. I actually left it running overnight. This is the how the script ended. There is a script to install the software that you need, and I just let that run. When I scroll through, I started this off yesterday evening, sat for about an hour, and I think we was in this piece here. Yeah, so in this piece here, I couldn't even tell you where we was at. Decided that I needed to go to bed, so I was very tired. Left it running overnight, and by the looks of it, a whole load of stuff has happened overnight. File copying, installation of bits and pieces, stuff downloading. So I'm glad that I left it overnight and didn't wait. And the message I've been left with at the end, let me just bring it there, is just here. So started PiSCSI web service. Can't see any errors. Everything appears to have gone well. One point of note is on the actual device itself, the OLED display isn't working. That is expected. There is some separate software for that. So I think my next step will be to install that, just so that I can get an indication of what's actually going on the device. Next step, software for the OLED display. Okay, so I'm at the stage where I want to install the OLED software and get it to start up when I start the Pi. As you can see, the display on the board, this black rectangular piece, isn't showing anything at the moment. Also, just wanted to show you, I had to type in some commands. We're looking at the top piece just here. At the end of installing the software, just 4 commands, and these will force PiSCSI to launch when the Pi started up from cold, which is obviously what I want, because once this is all set up and installed into my sampler, I will of course be removing the keyboard and mouse and the video cable. This will be sort of headless. It will just be a standalone device that I'll connect to over my wireless network using a browser. The other thing I wanted to show you as well, just at this stage, hopefully you can see that okay, is I've used the commands that was the 4th command on the paper there. I've had to print these out as well, because there's no way I could remember the commands taking them off of my PC. But I've typed in this command here: sudo systemctl status PiSCSI, and this has given me feedback that the software's running. The software's running. It's also given me some information, such as just here it tells me that the default folder for my images has been set to home/build/images. So there's some helpful information here, and it's also given me comfort that the software is working. So in terms of installing the OLED software, there is a script to help with installing all of the software. To get to it, you run the command to change directory into PiSCSI, and then there's an easy install .sh script, and when you launch it, it brings up a series of options. And sorry, the light on my phone is affecting the screen, but as you can see, option 3 is to install or update PiSCSI OLED screen, requires hardware. So I'm actually going to be doing that. So if I select 3 and press enter, and it's asking me for my password, which I will pop in. Okay, I'll type that okay. And yeah, I'll just go for default. And again, I'll go for default. I'm not quite sure. And there we go. It's away installing. So hopefully, all being well, this will bring the screen to life on the board. So let's see how that goes. Okay. Okay, so the script to install the OLED display software completed. I was asked to do a reboot, which I did. And on rebooting, you get a list of services that are being loaded as part of the boot up, and I did see PiSCSI, I did see the OLED display loading, and the PiSCSI was all lit up, the Raspberry Pi booted, and on the OLED display, nothing. It was completely blank. So I sat here pondering, thinking, you know, maybe I've done something wrong, maybe I've not soldered the one of the GPIO pins correctly, maybe there's been some sort of error with installing the software, and I'm sitting there thinking, you know, what am I going to need to do to troubleshoot this? And I sat here for a few minutes procrastinating, as I do, and then bosh, the display lit up. So I think part of the problem here is I just don't know what normal looks like. I don't know what to expect. I don't know, if things are working normally with this process. But I'm just wondering if patience is required. I don't know if the display taken a long time to come on. It certainly took a good few minutes. I don't know if that's normal, but I'll get to learn. Anyway, the display has come to life. Let me just zoom in on that. And as you can see, it says no device attached. And it's also giving the IP address on my local network. So it's positive. It's it's a good sign. So so I'm really pleased. Everything appears to be working okay. So next step is going to be to create or obtain some images of hard drives that I can mount and make available on the PiSCSI, and then of course plug it into my Akai and then see if I can access the mounted drives on my sampler. So next step, let's see if I can get some images sorted that I can mount on this. I just want to talk about the LED indicators on the RaSCSI, because knowing what they are and what they're for is actually helpful to know whether your device is working. And again, I've got all of this information from the GitHub wiki. Really helpful. So the first two lamps here and here are 5 volt and 3 volt indicators, and normal is both of them to be lit. The third LED is labelled EMB, and this lights when the PiSCSI service is running on the Raspberry Pi. The fourth LED that's not lit is labelled ACT, and that lights when the RaSCSI or PiSCSI software is accessing an image. So obviously I don't have any images mounted. I'm not accessing any yet. So that won't be lit. That is correct. If there's any issues with the PiSCSI software, then expect this LED to not be lit. It's good for confidence. It's telling me that everything's okay with the device. Another point of note is when I power on the Raspberry Pi, these two LEDs here, the ENB and the ACT, they're kind of partially lit. So the two power LEDs are nice and bright. These two are partially lit. As soon as the PiSCSI service is loaded, I noticed that the ENB LED lit really bright, same as the other two for power. The ACT was mildly lit. It actually then went off. So this is good for confidence, and just something that I thought I'd point out. It's in the documentation. It's good to know. Okay, so I've been able to successfully create a couple of hard disk images. They're stored in my home bill images folder. You can see them both there, drive1.hda and drive2.hda. I was able to create these fairly easily, to be honest, using the documentation from GitHub, which I printed out. And the instructions are actually really good, really easy to follow. So I'll show you the commands that I typed in and the output that I received, and you'll have to forgive my wobbly hand. So in this box, in this console box, I've typed in the command dd if equals /dev/0 rf equals, and then there's the path for the image file, and I've called the first image drive1.hda. The BS equals 4M, that relates to block size as 4 megabytes, and then the count equals 1000 means 1000 4 megabyte blocks have been created, which creates an image of 4.2 gigabytes, which is what I wanted. I then created the second virtual drive using the same commands, only this time I've called it drive2.HDA rather. Each drive creation took about 5 minutes, so it really didn't take long at all. So yeah, fairly straightforward to create both of the drive images. What I've now got is 2 drive images that are full of zeros. There's no data in them at all. They're not formatted. They're just files that exist and take up space on my SD card. The second part of the process is to mount them onto the RaSCSI. So let me just bring up the other command box. So the first command I used is SCSI CTL space -L. That told me no devices currently attached, which is what I expected. I've only just created them, I've not mounted them. And then there's 2 mount commands here. So there's SCSI CTL -I. This is this SCSI ID I wanted to use. So ID 1 for the first image, a few more switches, and then I've given the path for the first of the drive images that I created. I've then repeated the command and specified device ID 2, and again for the drive image that's drive2.HDA. I then used the same command again, SCSI CTL space -L, to show me the drives that are now mounted, and there they are, IDs 1 and 2, and the 2 images that I created. And just for comfort, if I show you the OLED display on the device, let me just focus that. It's no longer saying no drives attached. It's showing me drive 1 is drive 1 HDA, drive 2 is drive 2 HDA, and then we get the IP address again as before. So looking really good. Everything appears to have gone really well. So continued success. So I think what I'd like to do next, there's a little bit of documentation which I'll just show you actually. It talks about presenting the drives on startup. Let me just try and find that, sorry, that's unfocused. Here it is. So presenting SCSI disks when the PiSCSI service starts. Now there is a web interface for this software which is interesting and something that I may look at. I think what's going to be helpful there, of course, is you would connect to the PiSCSI using the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. The question you would have is, how do I find out what the IP address of my Raspberry Pi is when it's headless, when there's no monitor or anything attached to it? And of course the answer is right there. The IP address is given on the OLED display. So again, really good forward thinking by the developers. What you need is presented front and center. But it's not concerning me. There is a method obviously for mounting the drives without using the web interface. I've just done it. But I was expecting, probably naively, that these drives will be mounted automatically when it starts. I don't know without testing, so I think what I'm going to do next is reboot the Pi and see if these drives automatically mount. If not, then I will need to follow these steps to get them to auto mount, which is what I'm going to need. So let's give that a try. Rebooting meant I lost the mounted drives. So I've had to go through the pain of doing more to make them sticky, so to speak. So I've printed out the web interface instructions, and the reason I've done that is to do it via the command line is not for the faint-hearted. They do say in the notes that if you want to not use the web interface and you want to use the command line, it's really for expert people. I'm not an expert with Linux or you know, doing that kind of thing, so I've shied away from it and I've gone for the web interface option. All will be revealed in this section of the video. Just a point of note, I mean, the first step here talks about you don't need to do this step one if you've run the easy install script, which I have done. Out of interest, I didn't know if there was an option for setting up the web interface within the script, so I thought I'd have a look. Now, let me just wait for my monitor. I've got a resolution message that just needs to clear because the Pi went to sleep. Just give it 2 seconds. It's always the way, isn't it, when you're trying to record a video, something pops up and gets in the way. Go away. There you go. So I've gone into the folder where the script is. I've run the script and the script is corrupted. So that's a real shock. I don't know what's caused that. I have done another console window and tried again. I've restarted the Pi and tried again. The script is corrupted. So the days or the option of me using the easy install script are gone now. I'm a bit knackered with that regard. However, looking at the instructions, I could skip step one. Those dependencies have already installed. So straight on to option 2, compiling the Python protobuf library. Sounds more complicated than it is, if I'm honest. There's a whole load of steps to go through, which I've done. Not many actually, and again, as I've said before, the directions, instructions on the GitHub wiki are really good. Everything you need to know is there. So that's installed the web interface and set up the service so that it runs automatically. As I say, the script is knackered. So what I've done is I've taken the IP address of the Pi. So local LAN address. Obviously I'm on a wireless network. I can't get that to focus. Please focus. Anyway, it's an address that ends with 197. So let me take you over to my PC. Oh. And here is the web interface on my PC. And I just want to point a few things out on this. So what you can see here in this section here is all of the drives that have been mounted. At the moment you can see I've got one mounted as device 0, and that is my drive1.hda. If I can get that to focus, there you go. It comes up as a quantum fireball. It's been spoofed to be that way. There's a section underneath, image file management. You can see drive1.hda listed there, and if I go along, it says that it's in use, which is as expected. It's up there, it's in use. There is obviously my drive2.hda. These have just been offered by the interface. I've not had to do anything to make these appear on here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to mount this as my second device. So if I click on ID, I want this to be drive 1 because device 1 is drive 0. I'm going to attach that. And there you go. So there's a green banner that's appeared that says it's been attached. You can now see it in the list. Now, I did this before, restarted the Pi, and yet again the drives didn't auto mount. So I looked at the documentation, and this is the bit that's relevant. It's just here. So what it says, if I can just sort of point out the key bit, you need to save your configuration in a file called default.json. So if I go back to the page, the web interface page, just over here on the right at the top, it says file name default.json. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to click save. And there you go. So the green banners now says file created, there's the path, and default.json. Both of my drives are listed. Now, what happens is when the Pi starts up, it will automatically, as it starts the web service, it will automatically load that default.json file, and then it will auto mount the drives. And I actually tested this when I had just the one drive configured, and it does work. It just takes a bit of time for the service to for the web service to start up, and then for it to load the configuration. You just need to be patient. I did make the mistake of setting these two drives up and creating a config file called S5000. I didn't read these instructions first, and of course when the Pi rebooted, nothing mounted. The trick is you need to have your settings saved in a file called default. That's the file that's going to auto configure, default.json. You can have as many config files as you like by the looks of it, but none of them are going to auto configure when you boot the device. So we're in business. This is looking good. I've got the two drive images created. They're obviously unformatted, and they're going to auto mount when the Pi starts up. So next step is going to be to plug it into my sampler. So let's give that a go. Okay, so I've got the PiSCSI plugged into my sampler now. I've plugged the HD50 cable into the back of my sampler, just there, and just while I'm around the back of my setup, the white cable that I'm following with my finger, I've plugged that in. That is the power for the Raspberry Pi. Point of note, actually, I should have said this way earlier in the video series, but the PiSCSI does have a micro USB power connection, so does the Raspberry Pi. You should only really need to use one of them. I've decided to use the Pi charger. It's a powerful little charger, and it is powering both devices. And the PiSCSI is now headerless, so if I just pop over, and there it is. I've got it hanging over the desk. It's booted. I've got no monitor, no keyboard plugged in, and you can see both of the drives have mounted. So I've powered on the sampler, and look at that, fantastic. So it's telling me it's detected the floppy drive, which is the GoTech, but it's also detected two hard drives. Look at that, absolutely fantastic. So yeah, next step is to format them. So if I go into utilities and disk utilities, and if I go into disk list, so I'm trying to do this whilst holding the phone. Might be easier to use the S5000 actually, but there you go. So there's the three drives, the floppy drive and the two unknown disks, which are the hard drives being presented by the PiSCSI. So if I scroll down, and let's format the disk. So I choose the option to format the disk. All data on all partitions on this disk will be destroyed, and I'll go for a quick format. And off it goes. So just I pointed out the ACT lamp on the PiSCSI. Let me turn off the camera, the camera light, and you can see the ACT light is flashing, showing disk activity, which is, as I said before earlier in the video, completely expected. So everything appears to be working as expected. So let's see how this format goes. and then I'll go on to format the second drive. So I just realised that I had to go a bit further than I did with the formatting. I had to label the disc and then press to proceed. But there you go, it is formatting, and you can definitely see the ACT light permanently on now, actually, because the drive is busy, so to speak. So yeah, this is again just fantastic, really, really positive. So I'm really, really pleased. And there you go, it looks like it's done that really fast. And there you go, so I've now got an Akai HDD1 with FAT32 format ready to receive some samples. I'll just do that for the second drive as well, and then we'll look at getting some sounds on. Okay, so in the previous clip I was talking about putting some samples, some sounds onto the hard drives, the virtual hard drives on the PiSCSI, and hit a snag. But I also think part of the snag is really my expectation and not really entering into the spirit of what the solution is. So in my head, what I wanted to do was to look at the library of samples I've got on my PC, transfer them over to the virtual hard drives, and then access them on my sampler. That's not easy to do. The problem we've got here is the Raspberry Pi operating system is Linux. Windows, I mean, if I ejected the SD card and plugged it into my PC via a converter, or one of those USB SD converters, Windows won't see the file system without some additional software. And then even if I then could access the HDA virtual files, I would need additional software to be able to open them. It's just not elegant, it's not easy. Within the sampler itself, there's no easy way of transferring files between drives. So if I mounted a virtual CD-ROM, I wouldn't be able to easily, in actual fact I think it's impossible to copy the content over. There is an option on the Akai S5000, S6000 to duplicate drives, and that's meant to be more of a backup type option, but it's the whole drive image in one go. It's not selected files. So I need to rethink how I'm working here, and I've given this some thought. The last clip that you saw was recorded last night. It's now the following evening. I've done some thinking, I've done a little bit of research after I finish work, and this is what I think I'm going to do. So I've got two virtual hard drives. They've both been formatted, and they're both 4 gigabytes each, and they're both empty, with no easy way to get samples onto them. If I show you, let me just move the pointer to point this out. The web interface is telling me that I've got just over 6 gigabytes of disk space remaining. Now what I'm thinking of doing is, and what I'm looking at doing is looking at the folders that I've got of sounds and converting those to be ISO images, so effectively CD-ROM or DVD-ROM type images, and sending them over to the Raspberry Pi and mounting them as I want to use them, and then actually use the hard drive space, which is currently empty, as a space to store my data, my multis, and the samples that I'm using and stuff like that. So the virtual hard drive becomes my storage area, and the source sounds are effectively fake CD-ROM files. So that's what I'm going to do. And it's elegant, it's easy, everything I need is available right now. So the first thing I'm going to do, I've booted the PiSCSI up. The sampler's currently off. I've not even got it on at the moment. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to detach the second drive, and then I'm actually going to delete it and free up the space, because I'm only going to need one area to store my data. I think 4 GB is going to be more than enough, certainly given the use that I'm going to be having on the machine. So I'm actually going to delete the second image. So I'm just going down to my sort of file management section, and I'm going to choose the delete option to get rid of that. So I'm just being asked, do I want to delete it? Okay. And I've had confirmation that it's been deleted. So let's look at the available space, and I'm now up to 10 gigs, which is wonderful. Now let me just show you what I've been doing. So if I bring up my Windows Explorer, I'm working out of my downloads folder, because what I'm doing is I'm doing a little bit of preparation, and what I don't want Windows to be doing is my OneDrive trying to upload and you know, put everything into the cloud while I'm doing this. So I'm using the downloads area as a non-OneDrive area to stop Windows from trying to do things that I don't want it to do. I've created a subfolder called images. This is my sort of working area, and then I've created a folders section. Now the folders section contains a couple of folders which are sample CDs from sort of back in the day. So if I go into these, they're just WAV files. So nothing special, just folders with WAV files. And what I'm going to do, if I go back a folder to images, I've also got an ISO folder, and here's one that I prepared earlier. This is a Megabase remix folder. Inside of it, actually there's the ISO there. Inside of it again is just a folder full of WAV files for me to access on the sampler. So I'll show you what I've been doing. I'm using ImageBurn, which is software that I've used for eons. Really good, easy to use. I'm using ImageBurn to select a source folder. I've just showed you the Megabase remix folder. I'm outputting to an ISO file, which is in the ISO folder in my downloads area, and then I'm just clicking on that to burn it, and there you have it, an ISO image. Now if I go back to the web interface, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the ISO file available on my Raspberry Pi, so I'm going to copy it over. So I'm just looking at this through my phone screen, which is not ideal. What I want to do is transfer over, and I'm just trying to find a section, transfer file to the PiSCSI. So I click on the link, upload file from local computer. Just to confirm, it says disk images are being stored in home built images. That's perfect, that's exactly where they need to be. So if I go back to the file browser, there's my ISO file. I'm literally going to drag this onto the box, and the file upload is underway. And there's a green status bar just underneath where it says Megabase Remix ISO. So I'll stop, or I'll pause the video here and come back to it once that's completed. It shouldn't take long. Okay, so the file upload's completed. I've now got a green tick. The image was 0.8 gigs, which is very large, obviously far larger than a CD-ROM. My understanding is that with ISOs, they don't need to be any particular fixed size. So what I really like about this as a solution is, it doesn't matter the size of the folder and subfolders. I can just image them as an ISO, put them onto the Pi, and mount them and unmount them as I need to use them. And just to reiterate the point, I think back in the day, in the early 2000s, when the sampler was produced, it's actually the way that musicians were working. They would have an internal SCSI hard drive for all of their data, perhaps two, and be using one as a backup, using the copy facility that's on the device, and the source of the sounds would be from CD-ROMs, from sample CDs. So effectively, I'm replicating that setup, doing things in this way. So it just makes sense now I've given it some thought. So what I'm going to do is go back to, let me just move that out of the way. I'm going to go back to the main page. And when I look at the list of available drives, so I've still got my primary hard drive still mounted. I've got an ISO that I created last night, already on the Pi. Drive 1, which is mounted, so it's in use. And then we've got the Megabase remix that I've just uploaded. So what I'm going to do is let's give this a try, right? So I'm using device 0, so I'll make the next device 1, and attach it. And there we go. So it's now mounted the Megabase remix ISO as a CD or / DVD drive. Let's see how that looks. So let's power on the sampler. Just searching for discs, and there you go. So we can see the floppy drive, which is the GoTac, just the one hard drive, and we can now see a CD-ROM icon. So it is detecting the mounted ISO as a CD or DVD-ROM, which is exactly what we want. Apologies, I had to take a pause there. One of my daughters interrupted me. The joys of trying to have some private time with your kit, right? We all have these challenges. So yeah, so the mounted ISO has been recognised. So let's try it out. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select load, and I'm going to, at the moment it's defaulted to the floppy drive. I'm going to change that to the CD-ROM, so it's recognised the ISO as Megabase remix as expected. So let me select that, select disk, and there we go. We've got the contents of the ISO listed. So if I press audition, we should hear. Perfect. Let's try another one. Nice. So this is working perfect, and you know, for anybody who's familiar with the slow speeds of the GoTac, the response and the speed is just brilliant. So what this means for me, next step, and I won't put you through the misery of doing this, but I'm gonna continue adding folders into this part of the browser, the downloads browser. I'm going to be using image burn to create images of them, and you know, depending on how much space I've got left on the Pi, I'm going to transfer them over, and then I can make use of them within the sampler. So I think that's probably the end of sort of everything I need to do. You know, as a hobbyist musician, I can now go back to enjoying my hobby of making music. So yeah, all good. I'm really pleased with the outcome. I'm really pleased with the solution. It's all working really well, and I've got a good outcome. I've got the outcome that I wanted, so I'm really happy. So I just wanted to end off just summarising really. I think the community on GitHub, I think the Raspberry Pi and PiSCSI, RaSCSI, obviously I use the terms interchangeably. I think the solution is fantastic, and I'm conscious that, you know, the guys that are in the community, the guys that develop and maintain these solutions, they're doing it in their own free time. You know, they're doing it as a hobby, and you know, the support they provide to the community. It's just really awesome and you know, inspiring. In a way, I'm hoping that this video I've created can be my contribution to the community. You know, I'm not I'm techie, but I'm not that techie, and you know, I'm eternally grateful. What this solution has done for me personally is it's breathed new life into some aging technology that I'd really like to use and continue to use into the future, and I think it's absolutely done that. So I hope you found this video helpful, and that's it. I'm going to sign off. Cheers.